you got to get bigger, faster, stronger every single day, right? So great brands are always looking at how can we optimize the business today, right? Units today should be opening stronger than previous units. That's a good sign of a strong business.
Representing Franchise Secrets, Eric Von Horn.
Jeff, welcome back.
Top of the afternoon.
Let's give a little shout out to let's not give any names yet, but give a little shout out to the swag that you have on. Like, you have a buddy that kind of has the hookup with stuff like that.
I do, man. Promotional
Don't
products is where it's at.
no
No
names,
names. I'm
but
not mentioning names. No, I got a friend of mine from high school. One of my best friends from high school. He's been in the promotional product business for 30 years, and I've kind of like learned a little bit about that industry. What you got is you've got your folks that go out and get the business. And then you got your folks that make the gear or make the coffee cups or make whatever the promotional product is. Very rare to find somebody that's like fully integrated in the industry. And so what ends up happening when you don't have full integration is you see these things like you have minimum orders, right? It'll be like you can't order one pen, one shirt, one hat. So you have to order in chunky bulk orders because that's how the industry's just always been. So he was like, that's just not good enough. Why can't I create an on-demand promotional product company that's fully integrated where you can get 10,000 items all the way down to a single order. And if you order it today, it ships tomorrow. And he's the only one in the country that's done that. He's got 250,000 square feet of warehouse space, and he's got 10,000 SKUs, and he can set up a business in like 5 minutes. You can upload all your logos and all your colors and all your brand standards, and then you can order a single item. And then there is pricing. Pricing does go down if you order more, right? So if you order 10 of this or 20 of that, the pricing goes down. But what's also unique is that if you choose 20 different SKUs and you order one of each, totally customized, you get the financial benefit as if you ordered 20 of the same thing, even though you only ordered one, but you ordered 20 items at the same time. So pretty cool, man. Customizable, order today, ships tomorrow. Pricing is as competitive as anybody else, but it's customizable to your brand. Pretty cool.
Yep, I like it. Hopefully at some point we'll be able to talk more about that. But
Yeah.
I think, I mean, we're just talking about the front street swag, and it's hard to get. And
yeah, we have a gatekeeper. He doesn't like to dole it out. It's on allocation.
No. But there's different ways of doing things. Like, I mean, I think, that's not AI, but this guy does have like robotic type stuff, and he's got massive footprint in his facility. It's not, don't think about like a little tiny mom and pop shop with a good sized warehouse. This is next level. Point of all that is just as you look at your brand as a franchisee, franchisor, there are new ways of doing things. AI is exposing some of this stuff, but just, don't assume the old way is the only way on anything in your business. I was on a little hour-long trip to go get some stuff to take to the lake house, and I opened up Claude, and I'm like, hey, franchise development lead generation's always been done this way, that way, and the other way. 2 years from now, what are the ways that it might be done with AI, LLMs, OpenClaw, all this stuff? Like, what is likely going to change? What could change? Like, break me out of my current thinking so we can be at the forefront of all of this. think we should be doing that in all areas of our business. And kind of brings us to the topic today is we at Front Street, going to continue to do everything that we've always done. We got some new things that we're going to be rolling out. We talked about it a little bit with Bobby with Franchise Accelerator and helping brands in different ways. But one of the things that we're doing is we are going to be the franchisor. And we've identified one where we, as a Front Street team and the founder of this original brand, are going to be the franchisor. We haven't done that yet as a Front Street team, and this is the one. So, like, I want to dig into, have a concept, have a model. Like, we could have rolled it out by now, Jeff, and sold a bunch of these, and we would have made a lot of money on franchise sales, but we probably would have had a train wreck, or could have had a train wreck on, a year later. We're choosing not to sell until a certain time. So that's kind of the setup. Where do you want to go? How do we want to dig into this to help some franchisees and some franchisors who may be involved in something that's a bit of a train wreck, or helping some franchisors, some entrepreneurs out there who have something cool, maybe something new, maybe something that's proven, and they're thinking about franchising it. And there's a million different ways to do that. Where should we start?
Well, I guess you start at the beginning, right? Or
Better
you can
than the
start with
end.
the end in mind.
Yeah, I was gonna say, or the end in mind. At the beginning or the end in mind.
So yeah, man. I mean, I think we probably talked about it a little bit before in terms of when we're looking at a company, when we're looking at a brand, we have a few major boxes to kind of check, right? And um and so that's kind of how we started with this concept. This is a concept that was brought to us by an existing franchisor in a different category, but a similar type customer target kind of thing. Franchisor of a different space, kind of brought us a concept almost a year ago that they were kind of opening up kind of a pop-up location for proof of concept, and just said, hey, if this thing takes off, I'm pretty busy as a franchisor of a different business. And so would you at Front Street be interested in partnering with me on bringing this concept to market? And it was really intriguing. It was really intriguing. What we're really interested in is we are very interested in finding white space. We are very interested in brand positioning. We are very interested in being the 800-pound gorilla. If we're going to, whatever the category is, we want to be the market dominant player. We've talked a lot about the fact that, like, the reason that we're in business and what we try to do every day is to build equity in brands that we partner with, that we promote, that we believe in, right? Enterprise value is that's our measuring stick. Did we grow enterprise value today in the businesses that we spend our time, money, and energy on? That's our measuring stick, right? And so we know that if you can go into a category and be number one in the category, then that's going to translate into a higher multiple, right? That's going to translate into into a good end game for us. And so with this category, we felt like, wow, okay, there's a way to do this. It's just a better mousetrap than how it's being done today. The existing category today is tough to scale. It's tough to scale. And this franchisor that brought us this concept is basically doing the same thing. This category's been around for a century, maybe ish, right? And it's been done, and there's been little variations here and there on how it's done, but this is a monster variation. And it's one of those things where the light bulb goes off immediately that this is going to be how it's done in the future, right? So you just said, like, hey, I asked Claude, like, how's the world going to change in 2 years? That's how we're thinking, right? Like, how does an industry look today and how is it going to change in the next couple of years? Is there a way to position ourselves to be out in front as the world is turning and changing and evolving? And in this category, if you polled 100 people, here's the different variations of how this service is provided today. And here's the concept that we're bringing to market and how it's changed the way and disrupted the way that that industry works. 100 out of 100 people would choose the way that we're bringing it to market. It
So
is
that's why we're
phenomenally
excited
better
about
for everyone involved, the customer and the operator.
So that's why we're excited about this one. And this is also the reason we could have sold a bunch of them. Because if we were to share this with you,
I know.
you would fully understand it and be like, hey, sign me up. So we knew that. We also knew we had to pump the brakes on everything. So could we have done that? Could it have worked out? Would it have worked out? Probably well. I think so. But there would have been some pain along the ways. And so we're like, hey, why don't we take a step back and fully build out the branding side of things, fully build out, well, I should say, start to understand what a second, third, fourth, fifth location looks like from an opening standpoint with real estate, with build out, with the different variables that we have to deal with from an operational standpoint and the types of employees that we want to have. And there's very few employees with this one, like very few employees. And so we wanted to understand what we don't understand today. I mean, it's one thing to have one that works in one location in America. And it's another thing to open up a couple more in that general market, open up some more in a different market to fully understand a lot more than you understand with just one successful location. And so really that's what we've been focused on, and that's what we're working towards, right, Jeff?
That's right.
The whys behind that. Give a little bit on the whys behind that as kind of more of a cautionary tale to maybe some franchise buyers, maybe some franchisors who are disappointed that they haven't sold as many as they want to sell, meaning they've sold zero. And they come to us and we're like, that's the best thing that ever happened to you because you got to fix X, Y, and Z. So we didn't want to get to that point where we're open up and we wish we could go back and learn on our own dime and have a system that is stronger because we've built out multiple locations. So give some of the reasons of why we decided to not go to market right away.
So we want to try, well, first of all, the basis was off of like one location in one market, right? And we've kind of talked about this idea of like, it's important to, and for us, we would prefer to battle test a location in multiple parts of a market or open up locations in additional markets, right? To really kind of show that there's proof of concept before we bring something to market. A lot of times what you see, and look, we've brought some brands like this to market before as well, where you have a very established brand in one singular market for the most part that has built a business over a long period of time and is saying like, look at this fabulous business and it's doing millions of dollars and good profitability, but really never stretched outside of the home market, right? And maybe opened up 20 years ago, right? And it's like, okay, how would that change or evolve now? And so we like to see that a concept has either opened in new territory in the same market or has opened up new territories in additional markets. And then, always what we're looking at is how can we optimize the existing business as it lives today, right? You got to get bigger, faster, stronger every single day, right? So great brands are always looking at how can we optimize the business today, right? Units today should be opening stronger than previous units. That's a good sign of a strong business, right? The other thing is that existing locations today hopefully are improving from the same time period a year ago, right? Year over year growth. And so what we wanted to do is say, man, look, we're very bullish on this concept, but what we wanted to do was say, okay, look, let's open an additional location or two in the market, in the existing market, right? That the model store was in. And then in addition to that, let's open a couple locations that are in markets outside of the home market, right? So we can show that we've expanded in an existing market with similar or better results and expanded into new markets with similar or better results. Along that way, it's important for us to test some of these optimization pieces, right? How can we tune up the unit economics? How can we grow the top line? How can we decrease the expenses and widen the margins? And so, look, we're going to bring this to market sometime early next year. And it's hard to hold back because a lot of times you're chomping at the bit to get it to market. But at the end of the day, like when we think of the end game, we think that this is a better play. And there are some key things that we want to kind of test out so that we can really kind of push the top line revenue. And if some of those, and then look, here's the whole thing too. You're never going to have every single thing figured out before you start franchising. Because the reality is today, as you sit here, you're working on the most recent model that you have. I guarantee the business has evolved over time, right? But the model a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years down the road, it's going to change. It's going to evolve, whether it's AI tools or employees become robots or whatever the heck. Like something's going to happen. Things are going to happen, and so like what we want to do is always kind of say, okay, how far can we push this? Right? How far in the future can we push this? And let's try some of that stuff now. And so we want to get some more data points, which I think is really important. But it's also not something that, once again, we are not in creating a new industry here. This is a tried and true industry that will never go away, right? It is a service industry that will never go away. However, and it has evolved and people have created a better mousetrap over time. We just kind of figure that like the way that we're bringing it to market definitely does not exist at scale today.
And that's why we are, testing, want to test so much more out, because it just hasn't been done like this before. That's one of the things that gets us so excited about it. Let's just shift gears just a little bit. We've looked at two other industries, to be specific, that the industries and the way that they're being done are battle tested today. And if we were to work with a brand that the industry has been battle tested the way that would take it to market, don't think we would be as cautious about trying to understand as much as we want to understand with this new concept. Any comments on that? So what other two industries I'm thinking about? Those are industries that have proven that they're proven, and they're great industries. Private equity is buying out mom and pops in those industries. I like that. And we wouldn't need to open up so many. And we have other brands too that we're working with on the FSO and advisory side, where they've kind of done the battle testing themselves in industries that are proven and opened up in multiple markets. And we have another new one that will be coming out in the next month or two that we'll be able to talk about with that. That's more of a traditional Front Street brand advisory and FSO. So any thoughts on that? Just to kind of, I don't want everyone to think like, oh, to be successful in franchising like the Front Street guys want to do it, it has to be complete white space and completely new.
Yeah, I mean, look, you're not when you're it's going to be pretty difficult. I don't think we've really found anything of substance that is truly a new category or a new industry.
Yeah.
Something it kind of fits into some bucket somewhere, and hopefully it's got real points of differentiation, and it has better positioning in it, and it revolutionizes the way that it's done today, right? That's kind of what we're hoping for. when you get some of these tried and true industries, right? At the same time, it's like, okay, what's the weapon here? What I'm going to battle on a daily basis. How do I win? Right. So what what products or services do you offer that are superior as individuals or as a whole than other people that you're competing in the market with? Um, and or do you have a better way of acquiring customers at a lower price point, right? Like than what the competition is going after. I mean, at the end of the day, any business is going to live as long as it's bringing on new customers, right? And then getting the existing customers in their databases to repeat, whether that's on a monthly basis, a weekly basis, an annual basis, or some other time in the future. And so, a lot of the things that we focus on now is how can we bring the cost of acquiring a customer down? How can we go to market, right? And penetrate the market quicker. I mean, I'll tell you, one thing that's kind of interesting is when we've been really kind of looking at some new businesses now, and we've seen like, okay, so you've gone to market and this is what you spent going to market, and now you're spending X. Like one of the things that we're really starting to bake in or really starting to think about is like, let's really go to market the right way and let's climb that mountain faster if we can, right? Like when you look at a franchise disclosure document, for example, and you look at the range of investment, right? There's usually going to be dollars that are allocated towards market introduction. Could be grand opening dollars or go to market dollars or market introduction dollars, right? And you're going to see a line item there. And then you're going to see all the other normal expenses. And then usually the last box is additional capital necessary for the next 90 days, right? Or basically it's just a fancy way of saying like working capital for 90 days. My mindset has really started to think like, look, market introduction, you only get that one time, right? And what we have seen time and time again is when you bring something new to a new market, if you open soft, it's a very tough climb to get to a level of, it's going to take a lot longer to get to like that break even point. It's going to get a lot longer to get to the point where you're happy with the numbers that there are versus if you open strong, right? That's not a crazy thought, right? Open strong and you can kind of keep that momentum. Open weak and it's a tough climb, right? That's kind of like common sense. Well, what I've seen a lot of times is the allocation of dollars for a go-to-market strategy put into the wrong pieces, right? Um, and what I've also seen is people kind of underspending in the first 6 months, right? The goal of any business is, hey, you want to get to break even as quickly as possible. And then from there, you want to move through profitability as much as possible. Well, the way that we're thinking about a lot of these things and kind of like circling back to what you talked about, like the tried and true brands, when you have a tried and true brand that already has, some incumbents in a market, and yeah, maybe you've got a better way of doing the service. Maybe you have more service offerings, but at the end of the day, you still got to get the eyeballs. You still got to get the customers to look at your business and say, I want to quote, or I want to come in, or I want to buy. And so, one of the things that we're really focused on now is if we're looking at a tried and true business, is there a way to go heavy on the spend out of the gates to ramp the business quicker? And one of the businesses in particular, the guy that we're looking at partnering with, he is in a tried and true industry. Every single market has a major player, an incumbent. There's lots of franchisors in the space as well. But this guy's been going into new markets and spending like $25,000 a month on customer acquisition and ramping to $1 million run rate in lightning speed. And I think that that's the way to go when you're looking at these tried and true industries where there's a lot of competition. And yeah, maybe you do something bigger, faster, stronger, or better, right? But you still got to prove that in the marketplace. And so, like, just hitting it out of the park and going to market hard to ramp it up quick. Um, that's kind of the recipe. That's one of the things that we've been really focusing on, is really ramping up the go to market budgets.
Attention, franchisors and franchisees, there are two really important resources that I want to share with you that will help you avoid costly mistakes and increase your enterprise value. The first is our free Facebook group. It's a community that has over 4,000 franchisees and franchisors in it. When somebody asks a question, they get honest and authentic answers from multiple perspectives. You can join the group for free over at franchisesecrets.com/Facebook. The second resource I want to share with you is if you're a franchisee and you want to be around a community of successful Zs and other brands and in other industries, this is why I created the Franchisee Mastermind. If you want access to the best single and multi-unit owners to know what they're doing, or if you want to be around other multi-brand owners, then you'll want to check out my Franchisee Mastermind. The reason why people join is they want access to my Rolodex, my connections, to each other. They want a shortcut success, both short-term and long-term. Links will be in the show notes or at scalablefranchise.com.
I think I wish the listeners could listen into parts of our conversations when we have, partner calls on this particular brand every week and the things that we're working on, even on all of our brands. I mean, like the things that you hear Jeff talking about now, customer acquisition cost, customer lifetime value, all that is stuff that Front Street does day in and day out. This is the stuff, this occupies most of our time. I mean, the FSO side of Front Street, the franchise development side of Front Street, Bobby's got that under control. On our partner call to talk a bit about that, because that's the easy part for us. But dealing with these different brands and looking at the levers that we want to pull to ultimately help the franchisees, that's where we spend a lot of our time. So let's shift gears just a little bit. You just were on a trip. You spent some time with the founder of this brand and with one of our tech guys out there too, because one of the things that we want to test is technology. And that is, you talk about to any franchise founder right now in franchising. I mean, it's too bad for the founders that spent many, many millions on software technology to build their own 5 years ago, 6 years ago. Like, it's probably outdated. It's probably not working that well. And they spent way, just a ton of money for something today that just doesn't cost nearly as much. Franchisors, what I'm hearing out there, and franchisees, the same thing. There's so many different softwares that you can buy or have access to for a month or a year. I would suggest, and I'm hearing this out there in the world, both franchisees and a lot from franchisors, just do month to month. A lot of these software companies are, I mean, you just look online and how, not online, you look at public software companies and how they're losing market share and how their stocks are just tanking. Like, that's just a sign of what might be to come. They probably have a way where they are going to eventually come out of this, or the winners will. But right now, software is wide open for new franchisors to start looking at doing some of those things on their own if they have someone on their team that can understand it. So software is something that, like, us at Front Street and our brands, we're really leaning into in the years ahead. Multiple different ways to do it, multiple different ways to build it, offshore, onshore, hire a team. I mean, there's a million different ways to do it. But I think that's one thing that franchisors and franchisees should be thinking about themselves. And then what else? As you were spending time out there, Jeff, and you said it earlier, battle test it. Like, we want to battle test this as before we bring it to market. What are the things that you saw out there that would kind of fall in line of battle testing a concept before we launch it as a franchise?
I mean,
I got some softballs for you. If you need a softball, Jeff,
Yeah.
I've got some softballs ready for you.
I'm just thinking
Build
about
out.
it, man. No,
Buyer
I think like
profile.
one of the things with this particular concept is, and this is also pretty true to every brand, is one of the words that we're using or phrases that we're using here is touch points, right? Like there's something about the compound effect is real. When you take a lot of little things that are positive and you stack them up on top of each other, individually they seem small, but when you add them together multiple times, it can have a profound impact, right? And so as we look at this industry, we're thinking about like all the different ways that we can make the experience more memorable for the end customer, the people that are coming in through the door. Little tiny things. Some are more visual, some are more sensory oriented, but like what are some of the things that we can do that are touch points that make the business memorable, make the customer journey memorable, right? And um and so as we were kind of walking through the existing location and the one that's under construction, it's about ready to open here in June, we were talking about, okay, what are some of the things that would add to the end customer, right? As they experience the brand, but also the people that are working in there every single day, right? And how do we make it more special for them, and how do we make it more special for the customer? I think we've talked a little bit before. Some of the work that we do with brands before we launch is we do some net promoter score work. Like what is the likelihood that your customers are going to refer someone else to your company, right? Goes from negative 100, meaning 100 people that hate your brand so much they want to deter people from going there, all the way to positive 100, meaning 100% of the people that are your customers are going to refer their friends to the business, right? And so what you want to do is these touch points. What can we do that will enable this like customer referral piece of the business, right? Or just make it more special and more memorable for everybody that's inside the four walls. And so, I mean, that's what I would think about. Whether you're a retail concept or a service concept, what are the touch points of your business today? What new touch points can you add? The touch points that you have today, how can you make them better, more memorable, more special, right? Because that's what's going to hold prices steady. That's what can position you as a premium, right? I mean, there's nothing sexier than like when you're in an industry where everybody's price is X and your price is Y higher because of these touch points, because of the customer experience, because of your net promoter score, right? I mean, that's how brand works. What we always communicate is for me, what brand means for me, it's the emotional connection between a company and the customer. And the stronger that emotional connection, the more brand integrity you have, the more brand power you have. And the more brand power you have, that gives you momentum, that gives you price, resiliency, right? And that's where you want to be. You want to be the brand in the category. And how I would say you get there is by growing that emotional connection between your company and your customer. And how you get there, the simple things, is the touch points and stacking them up like bricks so that they become bigger as a whole. And so that was a lot of like what I was thinking about is what can we do to make this even more memorable for the customers as well as the people that work there? And that way we can grow the brand. Because what we're going to do with this business, once again, existing industry, just a new way of doing it. And it is so far superior to how it's being done today that it's likely to be not only adopted by the customers that we're trying to attract, but it's also going to be something that attracts copycats. And so what's important when you get copycats is it is going to come down to that customer journey. The subjective pieces is how does it make the customer feel, right? That's tougher to reverse engineer. And so when you get down into the minutia and you get down into the detail around touch points and the processes around making these touch points pop, then you can really win. Then you can really win. And so you have to look at all the different mechanisms of like, what are the levers of the business that you need to pull to win, right? And then how do you look at each one of those levers and create special touch points around those levers and the processes that make those touch points pop around those levers. And then all of a sudden, if you have touch points and processes around each lever and now you start to pull it all together, that's what makes something really sing.
So are you talking about, like, think about the moat that we want to build around this, that really any brand should be thinking about. And we'll finish on this topic of creating this moat. So I think some of what you talked about is this moat, but also you've talked about, increasing the lifetime value of the customer with everything that you just described, keeping that, and I think so many people are always thinking about customer acquisition costs and they are not thinking about just lifetime value of that particular
Customer retention, right?
It comes to retention. That's part of lifetime value. And then also what else can you offer that customer to sell them, give them a value, whatever it is, to increase the value per year of that customer and to create the years of that customer, how long they're with you. And that's customer lifetime value.
So that's what we started to dig in on, right? We're like, let's really build the moat around this business. And so we started with the end in mind at this one, right? And we said, how do we make what we're offering to our customers so insane that they will never leave us no matter what, right? That's literally what we said. What can we do to maximize our value to our customer? Not by cheap price. In fact, we're literally going in the opposite direction, right? What we figured is if we can provide this value to this customer, and it's so beyond what anybody else in the marketplace is going to do, we could charge the highest price. In fact, we're testing out being 30% more expensive because of taking this delivery of value to a customer to an unbelievable high. And that becomes the motor around the business, right?
And that's true. So, we say, how can we increase prices by 30%? But the customer see the value in that. They're not paying an extra 30%, getting an extra 30% of value. They're getting far more value for that price. And that's some of the things the franchisor can do to help the franchisees get that type of high price. And it comes at a cost to us as the franchisor, and thinking about it, executing all of this stuff, investment into the business. But we think like an extra 30% makes a significant impact into the bottom line in this business.
Price is a relative term, Eric.
Yep.
If somebody says that's priced high, that's priced low, that's a relative term. It's relative to the value they're getting. If I don't see a lot of value, I want the lowest price. Because if it's a commodity, it's a commodity, right? A commodity, there is no value in a commodity. It is what it is. So if that's the case, then just take the lowest price. But if the perceived value is through the roof, right? Then that's what the customer sees. Even if it's more expensive, relatively speaking, because it's relative to the value. If the value is low, your pricing is going to be low. If your value is exceptionally high, then the price can be higher. It's still relative though. People will pay more when they feel that the perceived value is that much higher. It's just a fact.
It's a fact. So someone who's kind of explains that really well, kind of talks about this a lot, is Alex Hormozi. He talks about offers, and he calls this the grand slam offer, but that's where the perceived value, the actual value of the thing that somebody is paying for is far more than the actual, price that they're charging for that thing. When you can make it just such a no-brainer that they want that's what we're talking about here. He calls it the grand slam offer. Same thing.
Grand slam offer, man. Make it undeniable. Then you're really neutralizing price at that point, and you can be priced. You can be basically priced out of the market. But once again, that's when we started the end in mind. We're like, man, let's really dive into the touch points. Let's bake in so much value that our customers will never leave us. Even though we believe that the way that we're going to change this industry, we do believe it's going to change in this direction pretty substantially. So if we want to get out there in the lead and we want to keep that lead, then we have to provide the highest perceived value to our customers. Because the only other way the way that most people chisel away is just discounting the price, right? But when you think about the premium brands today, the premium lifestyle brands today, there's copycats out there with a lower price. And there's usually enough meat on the bone where everybody can eat. But at the end of the day, where do you want to be? What's the more valuable enterprise, right? The higher multiple comes to the premium brands, period, end of story. And the ones that have the highest levels of touch points and can make a high price strategically defensible. Like that's the magic. That's where you want to be. So if that's where you want to be, why not reverse engineer your way into that? And that's what we're doing today before we bring this concept to market.
We're talking about, really what we talked about today is the Hormozi Grand Slam offer as it relates to franchisors building brands that franchisees can take advantage of the Grand Slam offer. That's in essence what we talked about today. Anything else as we wrap this up?
No, man.
I think we should be continuing to talk about some of the, like this brand and some of the others that we're building, because I think it helps everything we talked about today. Franchisees, like they could be doing this themselves. They don't have to have a franchisor telling you what to do all the time. Like you can create value, in your location. And what Jeff was talking about, it's the little things, whether it's the location or you're in front of the customer. A lot can be done without a franchisor getting involved with it. So Jeff, anything with that? I know I kind of threw that on you last minute, but like, how should franchisees be thinking about, my franchisor doesn't really talk like this. I wish my franchisor could talk to you guys. And by the way, I mean, feel free to send your franchisors, because we talk to a lot of franchisors and just try to give them help on calls that we have with them where we don't charge a dime. So franchisees, feel free to make introductions. But talk to that franchisee out there that they're wanting to get involved in some of those little things, have a better customer experience, which really just goes down to customer retention. And if they have higher customer retention, then they will have a higher lifetime value of that customer, which means they will probably make more money, because that's just the way that it goes. What would you say to that franchisor that's like, guys, I wish we could be doing
franchisor or franchisee?
Franchisee. Talk to the franchisees.
Yeah, I mean, like, look, most brands are going to have a brand standard, right? That's like the sandbox. So I'm never going to sit here and say, hey, stretch outside the sandbox. I mean, it's not something you should do. However, there should be an ocean that lives within this sandbox, right? That as long as you're on brand standard, then you want to add in as many of these touch points, and maybe even like localized touch points. I mean, that's the beautiful thing about franchising, right? Is being able to bring a national brand to a local community, right? I mean, that's the real magic.
Yeah.
But in each local community, every single city, every single town, every single municipality, it's got something special that's unique just to that particular spot, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, how can I just challenge everyone in a system, franchisors and franchisees, to think like, how can I starting today? Now, it's not just with the customers. You have to remember that retaining customers is very important, but also is retaining the staff, right? And a productive staff is a happy staff. A happy staff is a productive staff, right? And so, like, yes, can you make them happy by giving them a raise? Sure. But there's so many little things that you can do where you can strengthen that retention between you and your employees, right? And it's going to be the little things. I'm telling you. You could probably get a staff to work for less if they have a higher perceived value of what it's like to work there, right? It's the same thing. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like that's the strategy. How do you make it memorable for them? Because if you do that, then they're going to make it memorable for the customer. But like that's what I would really start with. I would say, like, okay, when you're providing a service, right? Whether it's out of a van or it's in a box, right? A retail box, no matter what it is, right? There is a time period before the customer interacts with the business, right? Maybe they booked an appointment, and that appointment is today or tomorrow or next week, right? Then there is the time period of when you're actually interacting with the customer and providing the service, right? Whether it's in the house or in a retail center. And then there's the time period afterwards, right? Immediately afterwards, a couple days down the road, a week down the road, a month down the road, a year down the road, right? Break each of these sections down before, during, and after the service that you're providing, whether it's in a box or it's out of a van, doesn't matter. And say, okay, what are the critical milestones of each of those 3 blocks, before, during, and after, right? Because before, there's a few milestones, right? Whether it's right after they booked the appointment or the day before or the day of, whatever, there's those milestones. And try to add 1 or 2 special touch points to each one of those milestones in each one of those time blocks before, during, and after the appointment. A lot of little things, right?
A lot of little
All
things.
within brand standards. And the next thing you know it, and then build processes around those. So it can be, it can be done in a repeated fashion the same way, right? And you will see that over time, you will win. That is the compound effect. Do the right thing consistently over time and you will win. And so, a lot of this, what we've been talking about, is just kind of adding to these touch points. So that's what I would say. If I'm a franchisee, you want incremental growth every single day. And I'm telling you right now that this is a great place to start. And you got to map out your customer journey, both before, during, and after the service, and break down each of those sections before, during, and after into the critical milestones of customer interaction. And then how can you make it just a little bit better through some
Guys, this
techniques?
is so easy to do with AI. I mean, this
Yeah.
is so easy to do. We do a lot with AI in the franchisee and franchisor mastermind. If you're interested in that, go to franchisetribe.com. But like, just at the very least, just start with some prompts and start talking to AI about some of this. Now, as we sit here, Claude's kind of the go-to. Claude's way better than ChatGPT. Who knows what it's going to be in 6 months from now or a year from now. But as we sit, Claude is the one to be using right now. Use it, have conversations, and then if you do team meetings with your team, record those meetings with permission, of course, and feed that into AI. And then that is a really good starting point for you to start getting better at all of this stuff and improving. Just talk about, like, put in the Hermosi Grand Slam offer, talk about how you want to increase average customer, your customer retention, the lifetime value, and then just have those conversations with Claude about that. And anyone listening that's in the mastermind, if you want to have a session on this in the mastermind, we'll absolutely do it. Might even bring Jeff, because Jeff can have some gold coming out. He could spit gold every now and then. So
Every now and then.
I can wrangle Jeff into to doing something. So, all right, Jeff, that was a good one. It went longer. I said we're going to go for 30 minutes, and now we're at 47. So I'll let you go. Thanks again,
Cheers,
man.
Thanks for listening to the Franchise Secrets podcast. Links to everything can be found over at franchisesecrets.com. And if you want my help with anything from starting your own franchise to growing your current franchise business, please visit scalablefranchise.com.